Welcome to Abha's podcast. Today we have with us Ms. Shampa Sengupta, a well-known disability rights activist, a gender advocate, and an influential voice working at the intersection of disability and gender justice. With decades of experience in policy advocacy, inclusive education, and community engagement, Shampa has been a relentless force championing the rights of women with disabilities across India. We are really excited to have her with us today. It is great that we are going to hear her insights and stories today. Welcome to Abha's podcast. Today we have with us Ms. Shampa Sengupta, a well-known disability rights activist, a gender advocate, and an influential voice working at the intersection of disability and gender justice. With decades of experience in policy advocacy, inclusive education, and community engagement, Shampa has been a relentless force championing the rights of women with disabilities across India. We are really excited to have her with us today. It is great that we are going to hear her insights and stories today. Welcome to Abha's podcast, and in this episode, we are going to meet Shampa Sengupta, who is a disability rights advocate and gender justice advocate also. So, welcome, Shampa ji.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for your podcast.
No, it is my pleasure that you have agreed to be here with us. So, Shampa ji, you have been a vocal advocate. You have been talking about it a lot everywhere, and I have seen you working for many years. That you work as disability and gender rights advocate. So, why did you come into this area? What made you? What propelled you towards this area?
It is a long, long journey, so very difficult to find out the moment why I decided and how the decision took place. But what I can say is I started my journey in this sector. Being a woman in India, if you are a little sensitive, you will be uh, feeling that there is something like not right, the societal
Yeah.
attitude. That is, of course, I think all of us face. But I joined the journey of disability activism not as a person with disability. I came from, I also didn't have a like, family member who's disabled. So it's a bit, mm, so a lot of people used to ask me why you joined, and I didn't know the answer at that point of time.
Mm,
But when I thought of it a lot, and then we realized that I had a we had a full-time maid staying with us, whom my mother, who was employed, she was a school teacher. So at that age, it was rare. So she kept a full-time person who can look at me for my well-being.
mhm,
And this woman was hearing impaired, and I was very, very close to her. It's a it's a very roundabout way how not just family members, but actually in India, a lot of times these people become your family member, part of your family.
mm,
And I was very attached to her. She was also a widow, and it's a very sweet story. If you have time, I'll tell you.
yeah.
So when my mother employed this person, her name was Annapurna,
Mm,
and we used to call her Annu Mashi, the
okay.
short form name. So few days after employing her, my mother realized that mm, she cannot hear.
Okay.
So, so she was not aware before. So when she was calling her for something and she didn't respond, so she realized
Mm,
it's she can hear. So all of the family members said that how can you keep a small baby with a person who cannot hear?
mhm, mm,
So my mother said, no, I can't like tell her that I'll not keep her because she cannot hear. Like, uh, I mean, I'm fine with that. Like I cannot. I'm an employer. I cannot tell her to go.
mm,
leave my family because she cannot care. You know how, like, many years into the work, I realized how such a small, and I was small baby then, like few months old I was. So how a small decision of my mother
mm,
changed my whole life, and how it strongly affected mm, my whole career. And for us, it's not just career; it becomes your life. The kind of
yeah.
emotional bondage we feel with the um, cause we work with. So I think it started from there. So,
But
and I
all
didn't know.
it needs a sensitive heart, like what you did and how it changed your life. It needs a sensitive heart, which you had, because people would have, if anybody else, if anything had happened with someone else, they would have like kicked her out of the work. So this needed
Yeah,
a sensitive heart.
I think it was my mother who did, because I was a baby then. But
Mm,
I grew fond of her, and I was not conscious when I
mm,
was in college. I was doing my graduation. I studied literature, and I knew I wanted to do something for the society, and I didn't know what to do. You
mhm.
know how it is. And I lost my father quite early, so I was still in school. So
Okay.
we didn't have so much money that I go to. This was the only place I knew where they taught social
Mm,
work at that point of time. But we didn't have that kind of money to go and to Bombay, sit for a entrance exam.
mm,
And so I saw a small advertisement that there is a course on special education, and I applied for it. So it was at Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, and I applied for it. I got selected, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did a 8 months course on teaching disabled children.
mm,
But only after I came out of the course, of course, I learned a lot. I mean, that was my background kind of like
mm,
work, and I studied under like scholars like Dr. Sudhakar, Dr. Rina Sen, who are also uh, very like good teachers.
mm,
And but when I came out of the course, I realized that I really don't want to teach in a classroom situation. That's not my calling. You know, so it's so even though I was doing some volunteer work, I also came to know that for the first time in Kolkata, there was a parents of intellectual disabled children are coming together to form a group
mhm.
and form an organization. And I'm talking about like 40 years ago, this is the first time.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we know Parivar is there. There are so many parents organizations are there. So I joined that, and then my mother was like, "You completed your MA," and like it was like they were giving me like such a small amount of money or a salary because they were a small group.
Mm,
And I said, "Why are you doing this?" Like, but I said, "No, I want to learn." Mhm.
yeah.
And that was really like something I did for 6 years. It's very interesting because I didn't know these terms like CBR. These are the terms I learned much late in my
Okay.
life. But I was actually going from home to home because
Mm,
we didn't have internet then. We didn't
mm,
have mobile phones. So I was going from one home to another of, where there are like meeting parents of intellectually disabled children, talking to them, trying to bring them together. And this is something I did for 6 years. I mean, I mean, when I think back now, I think it's like that sort of gives you a solid background of because you're going into the family, so
yeah.
you know what's happening there, how
Yeah.
much uh, of discrimination and how much of uh, even the abuses that happening within home, the family dynamic changing, everything you learn,
Yeah.
at that kind of
Yeah.
situation.
So violence with women with disabilities, like it remains unreported or goes unreported mostly. So, what do you think should be the legal changes that needs to be brought about in India, and how can people get better protection and social justice?
Violence on disabled women is of course, it's an unreported issue. Like how many women will have the uh, even know how to protest or how to complain.
Mm,
Protest is a secondary part, even to lodge a complaint with anyone.
mm,
So I mean that knowledge that I've been violated is also sometimes not there. Uh, Sometimes a lot of women they told us that, and I didn't feel at that point of time I had been violated, but I didn't even feel that there's some discrimination happening.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that understanding is sometimes not there.
yeah, yeah,
So that's a concern area. Mhm. Because self-esteem is very low.
yeah,
Uh, so we don't feel that is something not
yeah,
should not happen.
yeah.
Uh, we have some changes in the law. The criminal laws are amended,
Mm,
particularly on sexual assault. We have disability been included in the criminal laws, both in POCSO, which is protection for children from sexual offences, and the criminal laws, which came after Nirbhaya case, the
mm,
amendments that took place. We
right.
also have some components in it in the RBWD Act.
Mm,
But of course, a legal change, what I feel is very important is our Domestic Violence Act doesn't include disability, uh,
mm,
issue of women with disability, which is something because most of the problems are happening at home.
yeah,
And so the Domestic Violence Act doesn't include it. That is something which needs to be changed.
yeah,
But unfortunately, even if you have a law, these women do not know where to go.
yeah,
And if they have the courage to go and complain, um, the service providers are not equipped to support them.
yeah,
So we have seen cases where a woman whose uh, family husband was very abusive, and so she was actually working in uh, public sector, so she was earning. But
mm,
when she actually lodged a complaint with the domestic violence, we are supposed to have protection officers. But the
yeah,
protection officers didn't know how to include her disability
yeah,
in the case they were filing with the, it's the knowledge gap is very big.
true.
Information gap, knowledge gap, and
Yeah.
that needs to be widespread. That
And
is something
even
very,
they cannot communicate. They don't know how to communicate.
yes, yes,
So
yes,
they are the woman is all the more victimized because of that. She's unable
yeah,
to state her story, and it
mm,
is really unfortunate.
yeah, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah. And gender issues and disability issues, though they are intersectional, people don't understand this. People are not aware that this is an intersectionality area, and that's why women with disabilities, they get all the more marginalized there. So, can you share an example? Can you give us an example where two intersect, but people don't know that this is an intersectional area?
What I personally feel is, uh, I mean, again, we are also learning
Hmm,
uh, what is disability and what is gender. I mean, my concept 40 years ago was different than what is concept now.
hmm,
And even CRPD mentions that disability is an evolving concept,
hmm,
and gender is also an evolving concept. Because when we were young, we used to think there are different genders, and gender means like man, woman, and there will be like some physical appearance and the body that is important. That gender is a societal construct that we learned many years
yeah,
like late in our life. and we also didn't know that. And I think so, disability is also a societal construct because if you think of it, if a person who's considered disabled in our country will not be considered disabled in some other country.
Yeah.
So, because the definitions differ, country to country. So, to understand that we are actually working on changing the society, and that is why, even though we have law, uh, cha- society is not changing
Yeah.
as soon as a law is getting changed.
Mm,
That's
mm,
a big problem.
true.
For example, today only, I think it's 2025 we are talking today, and in our country in 1961,
Mm,
Dowry Prohibition Act was passed.
yeah.
Today's newspaper talks about a young engineer uh, is dying by suicide because her husband was asking for more dowry. And
Yeah.
if I read the news, it says that cash was already given, gold was already given. Only when he was also asking for something more, then this thing happened. So it's like to think of the time,
Yeah.
like if society doesn't change, even if you have a law,
Mm,
things are not really progressing.
yeah. And media is one of the platforms that depicts the society. And do you think Bollywood, which we are all like, we know what Bollywood is, and we all see movies, and do you think disability is properly shown in movies, and it is portrayed well in Bollywood movies?
No, I think this Hindi cinema has a very, very strong impact in Indian society, and I had say, and it's across every state. Even though I don't belong to a Hindi, prominently speaking Hindi speaking
Mm,
state,
mm,
uh, so it's very important actually to address this issue.
mm,
I don't think Bollywood is at all sensitive to the disability issue. So it's
mm,
either you are seen as a super creep, like you are a Superman type person who's, or you are like fitted, and not just in the cinema. I think these days we have TV serials, and I think all this, a lot of like series that comes and
yeah, yeah,
which many people consume. And I just see that how disability is treated as something that's pitied. Either you have to pity them or you have to put in like you're a goddess or something like that.
very true,
So
very true.
yeah, I mean, until and unless a person actually uh, goes through the process of what exactly is happening
Mm,
in a life of and you can't see just if you just can't see one person and decide that this is the way to depict,
mm.
so that is also there.
So, what if a Bollywood producer approaches you and consults you about disability? So, what would you tell them to avoid? Absolutely no go cliches. What would you tell them?
I think we have very good literature on how we should not portray disabled people in media, and that needs to be a part of the courses of producers, and I think even the directors and everyone who are in the decision making process of uh, making a movie.
Mm.
Otherwise, so sometimes we hear that this actor came to this particular NGO to learn how to
Yeah.
behave like a blind person or how
Mm.
they touch, but that is like a very short, like, do a like 1 day, 2 day visit, and that is not proper. You can't learn a disabled person's life by like having a small interaction, a short interaction,
Hmm.
and it's also the vision how they're portraying it. It's part of their vision. It's not part of only how the actor is portraying. The whole
Yeah.
vision of the
Yeah. The full
movie.
storyline or the concept, it is all in.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, like I don't know how much time I have, but I just wanted to give one example. In Bangla, there was a very, very sensitive movie called Dekha,
Oh.
uh, where very senior and very the actor we admired played the role of a blind person, but
Mm-hmm.
he was shown as a who was divorced from his wife, and he was touching a young woman.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, the young woman was feeling uncomfortable, and because it was a blind person and touch, it's a become very sensitive issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we actually talked to the director that why you are showing this, he said, no, but this is not like I'm not saying that every blind men are doing it, and they're saying it's only one particular mm, case, but it becomes because there are so few movies about their life,
Hmm.
and this becomes a landmark, like
Yeah.
so blind men do this, that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah. That
uh,
stereotype is created.
yeah, yes.
So India is going digital way now. It's a digital India. So do you think persons with disabilities are being excluded digitally, or are you excited about it that they are now able to do many things which they weren't able to do earlier? So what's your opinion?
Abha, I feel there are two Indias. There is one India where disabled people got much more access to information, to like WhatsApp making changes in its like even if I voice send a voice message, the WhatsApp will send it to make it mm, something which even a hearing impaired person can uh, read, or vice versa for blind people. There are so many technological changes,
Hmm.
uh, but unfortunately, large number of India is not do not have access to digital means even at this point of time.
Yeah.
So it becomes a much more challenge. So the divide has become now either you have a smartphone and you know how to use it
Hmm.
with all your like proper technology there,
Hmm.
disability friendly technology there, or you don't have it and you can't access. So for us, like we have seen many people who
Hmm.
could not even apply for UDID card
Yeah.
because they do not know how to like upload like this. You have to upload this photo at particular place. You have to
Hmm.
include this point there. So
Hmm.
that is also there. So there are there is a digital divide in our country.
Hmm. Hmm.
So one certain kind of people are getting a lot of uh, support by digital means, and certain
Hmm.
people we are just leaving behind.
Hmm.
Also, I think elderly people,
Yeah.
that is also like, I
Yeah.
mean, of course, many elderly people uh, uh, cure different kinds of disabilities, so they also are like losing out in this.
Hmm. So, can you tell us one underrated policy change that could revolutionize accessibility in India?
I think it is very important that see we have our PWD Act. We have this law which says that it is punishable if you don't uh, like adhere to such a certain kind of clauses. But unfortunately, this law itself is not being implemented, and how many people actually know of it.
Hmm.
For me, it is always I find that disability is an invisible issue,
Hmm.
and it's just like. We have laws, policies, we have a lot of good things, but um, it's invisible. Like people don't know about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So even if you go to a like bureaucrat if I go to a bureaucrat who's from Women and Child Department,
Hmm,
and I talk about RPD Act, they will look at me in a blank. They say, "Why are you here?" The social justice department. It's like as if it's something. Um, it's a separate department. Means it's something not part of human life.
hmm, hmm.
So unless you just include it everywhere,
Yeah.
so a lot of us actually wanted the constitution to be amended to include disability
Hmm,
as a discrimination. It's
hmm,
not there in the constitution right now. But
hmm.
I think it's not just amending laws and policies, it's also making the issue as much visible as possible. And
True.
it's like throughout, like from government to lower level.
Yeah. Hmm, yeah. So disability inclusion often stops at corporate diversity statements. We have seen that. So how do we move beyond tokenism to actual change? Because mostly there is tokenism. Actual changes don't happen. So how can we move beyond that?
Again, to acknowledge that disability is an issue that affects all of us. It's not just like even if the government says it's 3% or WHO is saying 8% or 10%, it's not 8%, 10% also. It's actually, it affects all of us. At
Yeah.
certain point of time, either as a family member you are affected, as a disabled person you are affected,
Hmm. Hmm, yeah.
or, and most of us, particularly we are at an age when uh, longevity is also like we have more like people who are over 80,
Hmm.
75, 80. So anyhow these people are acquiring disability. We also have
Yeah.
to think of them. It's
Yeah.
not that you were born with disability. The road accidents are increasing, everything is increasing, even the climate change, the pollution, everything is affecting our health. So this is something you should make a change in your mind that this is something which affects everyone. And
Yeah.
I cannot like say that no, it's not my problem.
Hmm.
It is an issue and it is everyone's issue.
Yeah.
Until unless that happens, I think nothing is going to change.
Right, right, right. And if you had a direct line with the Prime Minister of India, what's the one urgent policy change that you would push for right now?
I think two things. If I have a direct line, I'll ask for two changes. One thing is, of course, the change in the amendment of the constitution that we all wrote about many times.
Hmm.
And secondly, to make it like compulsory for, I think, all government personnel. It should be compulsory to read and understand RPD Act, interact with disabled people in a regular basis. That should be part of their curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because nowadays, what's happening is okay, so the police academy will call me and say, so
Hmm.
we want to do a 1 day thing, and can you come and teach about RPD Act to police
Hmm.
trainees? But that is like a 1 day training. After that, they go to their work and they forget.
Yeah, that is
So,
tokenism. Nothing more
yeah,
than that. Yeah.
that is so it has to be in a curriculum in a regular basis, and you have to interact with these level people to see
Mm,
that
mm.
what their lives are. And it's not theory, it's not just a law which is like very dry and boring. It's our lives. So
Yeah, yeah. Lives of crores of people.
yeah,
So, Shampaji, few rapid fire questions. So, one book or movie or a show everyone should watch for disability awareness.
I really don't watch movies and shows, so I can't give names of
Any
those.
book?
uh, Books, yeah, another book. I'm trying to remember one in from Indian context. I think I loved Priti Munga's autobiography.
Yeah,
Uh, yes.
we even read that.
So
It was wonderful. Yeah.
yes, yeah, it was wonderful. Because I think people should read about Indian women's disabled women's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Also, No Looking Back by Shivani. So, like, we have so many good writers who wrote about their own lives.
Yeah. One myth about disability that infuriates you.
It's actually makes me very angry. But one thing is like they're incapable. They can't do anything. So
Hmm.
that is something makes me very angry.
And if you could ban one word or phrase used for persons with disabilities, what would it be?
Why are you saying one? There are
There
so
are
many.
many.
I know. I hate the word retarded.
Yeah.
I hate I dislike very much the word differently able and specially challenged.
Yeah.
Very flowery words that
Yeah.
makes me angry.
Heartwarming words and just
Yes,
nothing else. And one person, dead or alive, you would wish you could have a conversation about disability rights.
dead or alive. Okay. So there are actually many people. I love reading Tom Shakespeare's book on disability, who's a UK based mm, researcher and academic.
Mm-hmm.
He's disabled himself. So I read his book. So
Okay.
I wish I could talk to him personally.
Okay. So if you had a magic wand and you could solve one related issue instantly, what would it be?
All disabled people get a proper chance of proper education,
Yeah, that is the
along
basis,
with the
foundation.
private, yeah, foundation, so that they can talk about their own
Yeah,
issues.
at least stand up for themselves, no? They
Yes,
know their own problems and issues. So it was lovely talking to you, Shampaji. Great. Thank you for coming to us and sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much.
thanks so much. It was wonderful.
Yeah.